Hi. The air conditioning just came on. Well, let's just try this with the air conditioning on and see if it makes a lot of difference. It probably will, but we'll do a test on it. These are very strange times, are they not? We're isolated, unable to do the routine things that we normally can do with regards to dental appointments and medical appointments and all the rest of it. However, I think that we need to step back and actually appreciate a break in our lives, a pause, and that I think it comes at a pretty significant time. We are entering into the Easter week. This is Thursday. And if you follow the story of Easter, not the one with the chickens and the eggs, but the true story, Easter overlays Passover for our Jewish friends. And Passover was to commemorate the the exodus of the children of Israel from Egypt, which culminated in the final plague, which was the death of the firstborn. And that God, through a sacrifice of a little lamb that the people were instructed to sacrifice, cook, and eat, the blood of this lamb was placed over the doorposts of the homes of the people who believed God, and those who stayed within those homes over the night of Passover were spared the death of the firstborn. Everybody else in the country suffered with this. Men and cattle, it says. So this was commemorated. You can see this in Exodus 12, but this was commemorated as what the people of Israel were to remember as an annual feast. And it was the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, unleavened bread was bread that didn't have leaven in it to cause it to rise. But I do get the connection between a flat piece of bread and what was required or what was given to the children of Israel as they lived in the wilderness for 40 years. They received from God on a daily basis, with the exception of one day a week, something that just showed up, sort of like dew on the ground, and it was called manna. And manna, they said, was sort of like coriander seed. It was a seed kind of thing, but it wasn't. It was descriptive of it, but nobody. In fact, the term manna meant, what is it? That's what manna means in Hebrew, is what is it? So it was the way God sustained them food-wise while they were in the wilderness for 40 years. So that unleavened bread was at the point where they were eating it before the Passover even occurred, was foreshadowing what was going to come in a little while. But now we go on to the time of Jesus, and Jesus and his disciples are in an upper room on a Thursday night, and he breaks the bread, which was the matzah, and it's flat. And he says, "This is my body for you." And then he has them take and eat, and then he gives them the wine. And he says, "This is my blood shed for you." All of this is foreshadowing what is going to come. And he does the same thing that Moses did back in Egypt. Before the Passover occurred, Moses set up that they would, on an annual basis, have this feast, which was a period of time of about a week, 7 days, where they were not allowed to eat anything but unleavened bread. And they were going to commemorate the Passover every year, and that was going to be with the sacrifice of a lamb and a meal and all of the rest of it. And it turned into a celebration of the fact that they were delivered from Egypt. Well, Jesus changes this, and he says, "Do these things in remembrance of me." So this is an overlaying of a tradition on a tradition, a new tradition from an old tradition. So Jesus says to his disciples, take and eat the bread, and this is the wine, which is my blood shed for you, for the remission of sins, for the forgiveness of sins, for a way out for you because of what I'm going to go through. Because I'm going to go through what I'm going to go through, you will be let free. But remember me. And then in Matthew he says, I'm not even going to drink this again until we are in the new kingdom together and I get to drink it with you. So that's a promise that Jesus has made, which I believe. I believe that we will in one day drink this fruit of the vine with Jesus in a new kingdom. But that's my belief. Anyway, we are at the beginning of this Easter time with what we call Maundy Thursday, which is the upper room with Jesus and his disciples. And then at the end of this meal, they're going to go out and they're going to go to the Garden of Gethsemane. And Jesus is going to be taken prisoner, and he's going to be led off to a number of essentially mock trials. I say they're mock because they were illegal. And he will be condemned to death by everybody. Essentially, there was nobody that really wanted Jesus to live. And he was taken to a hill with a Roman cross, bearing a Roman cross. And he was nailed to that cross, and he died on what we call Good Friday, which is ironic because it wasn't good for Jesus. But it's good for us, and that's why it's called Good Friday. It's changing things because before Jesus, death was pretty final. After Jesus, after Good Friday, we have a different understanding of what it means and what will happen. And proof of that obviously comes on Easter Sunday when the tomb is empty, the stone has been rolled away, Jesus comes back to life, and he meets with his disciples, and from that point on, the Christian church grows, and here we are today. We are here today in a very odd time for Easter. We're not going to be going to churches and dressing up and all the rest of it. But because we're in a situation with a pandemic, it is sort of like Passover, isn't it? It is sort of like the death angel flying over us. It is sort of those types of things. So we are hunkered down in a sense, and we're thinking about what does it mean? What is life about? And truly, we're thinking too, am I going to survive this? What about my job? What about life? Will it be the same? Is this the beginning of the end of something? It's a terrifying time in those regards. But I think the thing that should stabilize us is the remembrance. On the one hand of coronavirus, we can go back in history and we can remember there were dark times before this one. Many of them were even worse. I would say the plague. I would say the Spanish flu of 1918. I would say the Civil War and World War I, World War II. Some of those were regional, understand that. But those people who were involved with it, it was horrific. And for us, for the most part, we are isolated. But we are also cut off from our routine and our normality. And any time that we are disrupted in life, those things, that is a problem that we have to face. And just because other people faced other problems doesn't mean ours isn't important to us. So I don't minimize it, but I do think we have to remember in order to put it into a reasonable context. And then I also think we can fall back on our faith, assuming that we have a faith in God, and if not, that's always available. But a faith in God at least allows us to be reminded that we are not alone ever, and that the the basic fundamental essence of the universe is love and not despair. The fundamental basis for everything that surrounds us that's good is a reminder that God is good. I get the idea that the most difficult thing that a believer has to talk about with anybody else is, well, why is there bad? Why is there evil? But on the other hand, I think that those who don't believe in God have to explain all the rest. Why is there good? Why do we love others? Why do we care for babies? Why do we do these things? They don't seem to be survival of the fittest all the time. I get the survival of the fittest idea. That is our basic nature. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with some elements of evolution. What I find is that for the most part, people polarize themselves on ideas, and they get to the point where they over state something because it is important, but at the point where we start to lose our connection with other people we care about, I'm not so sure that that's all that useful. Anyway, that's what I've got. I hope you are well. I hope things are going okay for you, and you're in my prayers, and I'm grateful that I'm in many people's prayers as well. I live by myself. I'm in an Airstream trailer, but I have a lot of connections, and a lot of that has to do with our technology today. But I'm a grandfather. I've got 6 little grandkids and 1 on the way, so I'm a very blessed man, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. Thanks a lot.